Today, we'll be learning about this year's first-year reader, and my guest today is Dean of First-Year Studies, Hal Fulmer. Hal, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks. Good to be back with you again for another year.
Another year and another book.
That's right.
This year, we're going to be, students are going to be reading To the Last Breath. Here we go. It's by Francis Slakey. I guess, Hal, tell us a little about how this book came about and how we chose it. Well, before we get into how we chose the book, tell us, Mike, why we have a first-year reader. Let's talk about that
Sure,
first.
because some people may not know. We're in the midst of a multi-year plan required by our accrediting agency, SACS, to have an activity that increases and enhances student learning. We chose to create a culture of engaged readers. So we have a variety of activities that center around that. One of them is our Common Reading Initiative. Every entering student will read a selected text. Our colleges will pick books that they will read in their major classes. We have a faculty development piece. We've got reading conferences that we'll do. The New York Times partnership is a part of that, where we put the Times on campus and bring speakers in and do Times talk. And then we just have a variety of other lectures and activities that say, you know, being an engaged reader is really important to your success as a student. So we've been doing the QEP now for really 4 years, and the Common Reader really, for us, started before that. You and I were laughing off camera that if you tell me what book you read, I can tell you kind of where you are in the sequence.
Yes.
And if you go far enough back and start quoting things like The Road and A Lesson Before Dying, I'll say it's time to graduate and move on.
You've been around.
You've been around too long.
It's time to go. Well, let's talk about this book in particular and why this book was the book that was chosen this year.
Sure. We start out with our selection committee, which represents across the university, not just the Troy campus, every year with a list of nominated works. We solicit nominations. We'll have 30, 40, 50 books, and we start reading them and start talking about them. And we have some general parameters. It needs to be a book that really applies across Troy University. Not all of our entering students are 18, although a lot of them are. And it needs to be a book that we feel like sort of relates to our mission. There's an international focus. There's a desire to be a servant leader. There's some other pieces that are a part of who we are. It needs to be a book you can get through. You know, one of our apocryphal stories that really is true is in the early days we had a recommendation for like a 600-page book, and it was out of the French, and I had to say, that's a lot of pages, and the person said, but it's translated. I said, well, that's good. And so we work it down, and we keep kind of winnowing the list, and we get down to a final 3 or 4, and really at that point, any of those would be excellent choices. And this is the one that emerged as the consensus of the selection committee, and it's really an interesting read. He's a professor of physics. Frankly, not a very nice person, okay? Has some reasons for that, and really comes to a moment in his life where he says, you know, he's going to go on a journey of discovery, and he decides he's going to climb the highest peaks on every continent and surf each of the oceans. And so there's a real international piece, there's a real self-discovery piece, and as he does all that, he becomes a different person. He meets some people that change his life. He eventually comes back to this country, and he sets up a center for the study of science and the public interest up at Georgetown, and he's still there as a physicist. We anticipate we're going to at least make an offer to him to come down and speak to us in this coming year. And so, you know, we think there's a lot here about understanding who we are by reading his story, and maybe we won't have to climb those peaks and surf those oceans.
And of course, the part of it is that you're going to hopefully use this book across curricula, correct?
Absolutely. We will. It's required in our Troy 1101, so everybody in Troy 1101 will read it. That means in this coming year, 2,500 plus students will read it in there. But we anticipate people in science will pick it up because he's a physicist. People over in English will pick it up. We'll have some people maybe that sit over in some of the social sciences. Our book last year on the ghost map was used by nursing. It was used by biology. It was used by history. So yeah, we'll read it in multiple locations.
And so, the students learned about this book through Impact, obviously,
Right.
and they have a chance to opportunity. But with the book itself, how important is it for these students not only to read this book, but to just be readers in general? I know that's the purpose behind the enhancement plan, but how important is it for a student to become a reader?
Yeah, it's absolutely critical, and it's not just about being successful in college. You can't be successful in life if you don't understand how to be an engaged reader. We actually read a lot, but what we're reading are text and email and websites, and if you're going to be an engaged reader, that's a sustained, close reading, and it's connecting ideas, it's understanding ideas, and that's really important. It's important to passing tests, it's important to being educated. We don't want students just to be degreed. Okay, we want them to be educated, and that's different. So we will learn about it at Impact. It is embedded in Troy 1101, and we think if you become a disciplined reader in something like this, it will help you be a disciplined reader in other courses, because we're going to ask students to read books in virtually every course they have.
Okay. Well, the new book for this year, To the Last Breath, hopefully students will get a kick out of reading this. I want to thank you for joining me today, Hal.
Sure, good to be with you.